everybody. Welcome to the Sharon and Joe Show. My name is Sharon.
Hi guys, my name is Joe.
So we're coming at you tonight as usual from Joe's Garage, and tonight we're going to do part 2 of a video that we did last week about spiritual warfare. Now Joe, I'm going to get right into it. We ended the video, or I almost ended the video, with you mentioning the shocking, I think it sounds shocking,
It does sound shocking.
The revelation that the greatest accomplishment of your life was divorcing a narcissist. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I said it out loud to you in the car a couple of weeks ago. I've never said it before in my life, and I said it with such conviction. Like it truly hit home. Like, wow, this is the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. Not me by myself, but of course with God's help. But it was so. It sounds so cynical and it sounds foreign and it's so ironic to what I believed in. But I could tell you, like straight up, it's the greatest accomplishment of my life.
I get that because it's exactly the same for me. No, I don't think that that's something that most people who are getting a divorce would say.
Well, I mean, most people, hopefully, I don't think this is, but the percentage of narcissism and personality disorders aren't married to narcissists. So I'm sure they've got other things in their life they've accomplished. They wouldn't be saying if they were divorced from a semi-normal person or possessed some kind of empathy, that was the greatest accomplishment of their life. For me, though, with dealing with this damn thing, it was the greatest accomplishment of my life.
Me too. 100%. I know exactly what you mean. When you said that, I know. Yeah, I knew exactly. Yeah.
And we laugh because you're like, if we said it around anybody in a normal relationship or ever gotten divorced, we're like, what the hell is he talking about, man?
It sounds absolutely crazy. Yes, my divorce is the greatest accomplishment of my life. I mean, Joe and I have kids, and this is what we're saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's the truth.
And it is. And it was so ironic because my belief was like, for better, for worse, in sickness and health, the vow I made was to God, not only to my ex. I just had no idea that she didn't have a personality, that I was being gaslit, that I was being abused. It was just, I remember the day that it happened. She had been gone for about a month, and God had told me, Joe, like that God conscious, that inner voice, you're no longer bound to this. You do not have to feel guilt or you're free. And I remember that day, and it was just, my beliefs were so different because of my own childhood trauma.
Actually, let me ask you a question when you say that, because I understand that, and it's literally the same for me. But I think, I know for both of us, there was really one word that was the end, that was kind of the beginning of the end, and it was what?
Codependency.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was fighting a double-edged sword. The narcissist obviously is an F5 tornado. You cross paths with that thing and stay there for any length of time, man, you're getting hit hard. And to me, it was life or death. I dodged a bullet for sure. Definitely a walking miracle. God rescued my ass. But the codependency part was that I had this noble cause of marriage, and it's a good cause. It's a good belief. It stemmed, though, from childhood trauma that, when I was young, my brother and I, my father left. My mother was an alcoholic and a narcissist, and I was to blame for the breakup. And it was just a mess, man. And I've learned to forgive my mom and dad, but I definitely didn't want that happening to my boys. I would stick with it until the end. It was just my lot in life, and I was going to be a responsible, dad. I got sober at 25. I met my ex at 26, and I didn't get sober like to run away. This was it, and I'm going to stay faithful and make this work with someone that I didn't know at the time, antisocial personality disorder, narcissist to the extreme, and heroin addict, that I believed, was serious about her recovery the way I was from alcoholism and other drugs. And damn near died over a noble belief.
That's the same with me. There were many times I would almost, and this is embarrassing to say today, but I would almost, not almost, I did. I congratulated myself for being a good wife when I would forgive my ex for horrible things he did. Like he stole money from my kids, and here I am, I forgive you. That's pathetic. It's so terrible. But I didn't know, today, and it's always in retrospect when I look back to the things that I didn't know, like you're sitting here talking about all the issues that your ex had, you didn't know. I mean, how much different would it have been if you did know? Because when you did know, it ended.
Well, that's part of the reason why he has your channel and we have our show every week is, there's a saying that most of you guys have heard is smart people learn from their own mistakes, wise people learn from other people's mistakes, and we're trying to like kind of play the tape forward a little bit more so you guys see if you're on this road, this crossroads with the F5 tornado. It's bound to happen. It gets worse. It never gets better.
Let me ask you a question. For both of us, really, the ending of our marriage to our exes was because our codependency broke. And both of us we know the moment it happened. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I as I said, I was in my garage. I remember the day. And it was just that God conscious, that inner voice that just told me I don't have to do this anymore. Narcissists have the uncanny tendency to push, and then you forgive because we're enablers, man. We're codependent people. At least in my experience, I was. So are you. And you forgive and you enable them, and they push a little farther until they push so damn far that you got to be an absolute moron, like zero IQ, to kind of be like, dude, like I can't even like. I can't, there's no way. Like, this is not even like tolerable anymore. I'm most unfortunate to have a high tolerance for pain. And basically had to be brought down to my knees where it was basically, God is quiet. He taps sometimes on a shoulder, then he'll give me a nudge, then he'll kick me off the damn bike. I gotta wait for the shit to really hit the fan, which it did. And that's when I was like, okay, I don't have to, I'm free of this. At the time, it was delusional thinking that I was so noble to think that I was, a saint and staying in this for a good cause, which I was. But yeah, I remember the time it happened, the moment.
Same thing happened to me. I know the exact day. It was April 21st, 2016. But you're right, God is very quiet, and that happened to me as well. Like at the time, it could change immediately. I wasn't codependent anymore, but I wasn't aware of it. It's just something that happened inside of me.
I remember when I first got sober, I was 25 at the time, and I had hit my bottom. And I've been sober for a couple of weeks, and I was complaining to my sponsor. I was at a meeting, and he's like, Joe, when's the last time you thought about drinking? Now, I started drinking and using drugs off and on from the time I was 12 or 13 years old. And I had to stop and think for a second. I said, holy crap. I can't remember the last time I stopped. And he told me, like, I had to do a lot of work. I had a lot of amends to make. But he told me, like, the spiritual experience and the spiritual awakening is a sudden awakening. It is. And he explained it to me like this. He said, Joe, you've been drinking and doing drugs ever since you've been 12 or 13 years old. One day, out of the blue, you weren't even planning it. You picked up a drink and you put it down, and that was the last time you ever touched a drink. How much more sudden do you want?
Yeah.
So it was the buildup. And I was going through some things and recognizing I can't even trust this person, let alone love them. After 20 years, though, but I remember the moment at the same time. It was like the spiritual experience was educational. I had to learn about narcissism. I didn't even touch the codependency part yet. I was still pointing the blame at the narcissist because they are F5 tornadoes.
Yeah.
You know what I think of them. They're bad freaking news. When that codependency was broken, I started to it's like an onion.
Yeah.
You're peeling back layers and layers. And then I had to say, okay, maybe for a month or two, but for 20 years, Joe, you put up with this?
Well, I think part of it, though, is you don't know.
You don't know that you don't know. And how do you tell somebody that doesn't know they don't know? You don't. It's like, it's a God thing. It goes all the way back to God rescued, like my best thinking got me married to this thing for 20 years.
That's a shocking reality, and I can say that because I did the exact same thing as you. But I and I try to I feel responsible for it because I made the decision. I knew things he did.
We have a role to play in it. It comes into the recovery part where it's like the more and more you look and study and you're pointing a finger and you see how effed up these people are, like you're not putting the focus on yourself because we can't change people, places, and things. Hell, in my case, I can't even change myself. I need God's help to do that. So let alone the narcissist. It got to a point where, okay, the narcissist is just being a narcissist, which is an F5 tornado. Like, what the hell are my shortcomings and defects? And that's when I started digging into, holy shit, I'm codependent. Holy crap. My mother, I know, was an alcoholic who later took her own life, but she was a narcissist. The dots started connecting where codependency and NPD are born from childhood trauma.
Yeah.
It's just, and they should be responsible for it. That's their issue between them and their maker. Like, I know that I have to make things right for me and my children, and I've got a lot of work to do. But the more I focus on the narcissist, the less I'm doing anything about my own life.
Well, that's very true. You're not going to be able to get over something like this without going through the recovery process. And the recovery process is
it's brutal.
It's terrible.
It's beautiful at the same time because it sets you free. Like,
Yeah.
the truth will set you free. How true it is. I had to look at my part in things, not blame myself and not take anything away from those evil things. It's just, I had to start looking at why did I tolerate that for 20 years? Then the gaslighting, the manipulation, and the dots started to connect, and I started to see, like, back in the past when I was a kid.
Let me ask you a question, because you just said something, the evil. So talk to me a little bit about the evil, because that will kind of connect this to spiritual warfare.
Yeah. So we mentioned our first video, and a lot of it had to talk about evil. Is like, I believe in psychology and psychiatry. I also believe in things we don't know. Some people call them frequencies, other people call them vibrations. Good, bad. I call him God. I say him just because it's a hell of a lot easier for me to understand. It's not so much the pronoun or what you believe, it's the relationship, like father-son relationship. In my case, I'm Christian, I believe in Jesus. But even, like, it's funny, a lot of people, like, they memorize the Our Father, but if you read it in the Bible, Jesus says, when you pray like this. And he's talking about a relationship, a father and a son, or a father and a daughter, or a mother and daughter, like the relationship that we need to have with our Creator. But as I said, unfortunately, I have a high tolerance for pain, and I'm no martyr. They're not going to make a stained glass window at the church across the street in my honor. It had to take crossing paths with the F5 tornado to get to my knees again, like I did when I was 25 and I got sober, to cry out to my maker, because what I was dealing with was so much bigger than a narcissist.
We had mentioned last week, I can't remember if you said it or I said it, but how, you and I are Christian, and we believe in Jesus, and Jesus is the Son of God. And so we mentioned that if somebody wanted to hurt us, right, the one of the best ways they could hurt us,
get to the kids.
hurt our children. And that, Joe and I, it seems weird to say this. It doesn't so much now, but I guess it kind of still does, to say that you believe, or I believe in demons, or you believe in this, like, spiritual reality that we can't see. But
I do.
Yeah, me too.
And it's not just in Christianity; it's in Judaism and
It's
Hinduism
in
and
every religion,
Buddhism.
I think.
And to the intellectuals, I just say it's the unknown. It's the way that the conscious mind, I could kind of relate to things in this 3-dimensional existence and this reality, this thing we call life, this life school that we're in, that there are some things that are far beyond what we could understand. And in the light, in the goodness, in love, I call it God. And in the darkness, especially in, like, as sinister and insidious as a narcissist, I call it evil. I also call the evil, like, the blinding of my codependence, the generations of garbage that happened with me, my alcoholism, my drug addiction, for whatever reason, like NPD and, like, antisocial personality disorder, if you want to call them people, some call them interspecies predators. Like, these things are far beyond. When you don't have empathy, like, that puts you on, like, some kind of, you have the evolution of the human race, however that goes. They're not fully, like, if empathy is a requirement to be a human being, if it is, then they're off. You know what I mean? You're dealing with people that have bad intentions, whether it's conscious or not. I know it's a self-defense mechanism and all that shit, but when I see the voice, when I feel it, and I hear the voice change, and the and the pupils change, and the contorted face, and the cynical, pure just Jekyll Hyde, worse than I've dealt with alcoholics and addicts in recovery. I've done a lot of work. This is far much to a different animal, man.
You know, I've had an experience, several experiences like I know that you have. And this is why I say I believe in demons. I believe that this is a spiritual warfare. I believe it's a good versus evil, literally. I have experienced my ex completely changing. You know, when I say change, I don't know if it's so much that he changed or that this was really who he was. And you know, as they say, the mask came off. But there were several times, and you know, even now when I think about it, it's chilling. The voice changed, the facial expression changed. It wasn't the person that he usually pretended to be. And in fact, you know, I've mentioned this before. I might have mentioned it last week too, and I was talking to Joe about this earlier. You know, my daughter she's 18 years old. The scariest thing that has ever happened to her, and she talks about this. I mean, it just is, her father was talking to her, and it wasn't him. He did not have the same voice. It was completely different. I had called the police, and the way that my house was in New Hampshire, we had like a little balcony on the second floor. She was standing up, and so she was looking down. She was terrified. She was terrified because he had broken into the house. So he broke into the house, and all of a sudden he was there. And I called the police. And then my ex started talking to my daughter, and he's like, "I'm not intimidating you, am I?" Like, he was literally talking like that. And my daughter said to me, she's like, "I wanted to scream, yes, yes, you are. You're scaring me to death." But it wasn't him. Like, it wasn't him. Have you had an experience like that, Joe?
Oh, many. And, you know, the first video that we have from last Monday that we brought out explained a lot of that. You know, if there is such thing as demonic possession or anything like that, I think this personality disorder, I don't think all of them are. I think all kinds of evil in the world are influenced, but like these things are totally like designed and set up to be the perfect storm for that. And I have experienced it. If you guys listened to the video last week on spiritual warfare, I shared some of that. It's just bigger than us. It's like we only see so much as human beings. There's an unknowing there. There is light and darkness. There is evil. There is good. You know, there's a story in the Bible that talks about the angels and the demons and the war in heaven. I'm not here to explain it or to like say to believe it. It's trying to say like there's something bigger than us out there. There is something going on. I believe, you know, and I felt it in my heart and in my soul, you know, and if you believe in a soul, but this is how I relate my experience with the narcissist.
I agree with you. I can feel it. You can feel it inside. There's something, I know, I believe it's the Holy Spirit, but there's something that's telling you, wait, hold on here. Like something's not right. Like, you know, you get this like feeling, like fear going through you, and you know something's really wrong, and your body is like telling you, get out of here or protect yourself.
Yeah, I told you, like, the longer that I stay away, the more and more clearly I see how much in danger I was, how I
Yes.
dodged that bullet. And when I was telling the story last week, how my ex, like, she would tell me stories when she was little, and she had a lot of childhood trauma, and that's no excuse to be an asshole. You know, I had childhood trauma too, bad, you know, but how she mentioned the demon, like literally, like mentioned the demon was chasing her. She has night terrors with demons, and her arms would raise in the middle of the night, like at least once or twice a month, like towards the ceiling when she's laying in the back. If it didn't freak me out, I was just like, wow, that's really weird. It didn't scare me, but now when I was in hindsight, it scares the shit out of me, man. I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? What was I doing, man?
Well, it scared me when you told me that story. I hadn't heard that story before last week, and that's terrifying. There's so many things, like, and this is a lot, I think, part of the recovery, because you and I were with these narcissists for 20 years. I mean, that sounds crazy. It sounds insane to even say it. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But we didn't know, and there's that aspect of it. They before the recovery, because you have to go through an awful lot to recover from this. It's no joke.
You enter a fun house when you get into them. They open a reality, and you enter in, and like all those mirrors on the walls where you see yourself as super tall or super thin, and your reality is distorted in the gaslighting and the manipulation. And it took God to like get me the hell out of there. And it's funny because at the same time when her mask came off and scared the shit out of me when it did, there'd be times when I knew, and it was like this little kid going around on Halloween with a demon mask on, and you take the mask off and there's this little kid and he thinks his mask is still on and he's trying to scare you, but you see this spoiled little shit toddler, like this little demon toddler, like trying to scare you. And like when you have God on your side, like you're just like, get the hell away from me, man. Get out of my sight. And you push back, and they get scared of that, man. They're not scared of you. They're scared of your light, your power. That's what I think attracts them to us to them, like moths to a flame. And to begin with, is they unconsciously see the empathy and the light, and they need to draw their energy from that because they haven't created a personality. They don't, not them, but their personality isn't created.
When you were saying that, it just kind of reminded me of something. When my ex, a lot of you know the story about how he was found with a loaded gun, passed out outside of my house, and he was brought to a mental hospital. And the night so he was brought to a mental hospital in the middle of the night. So he was taken away by an ambulance. I later went down to the hospital. So I go down, they first had him in the emergency room. He was there for a little bit. And he was there, and he was very belligerent. He wouldn't speak to anybody. He wouldn't give his name, nothing. And they had a guard there watching him because they were afraid he was going to get violent. I went into the room, and, two things I want to talk about. I walked into the room that he was in, and as soon as he saw me, like, I could see it in his face, like shame. I could see it flashed across his face. He was horrified to see me. I knew it. But once I was in there, like, it just lasted a second. But what you said made me think of this. So there he was, he's sitting there, and they had this guard there. And every once in a while, we weren't really saying much. I mean, he wasn't talking. He was the king of the silent treatments. So I'm just kind of sitting there with him. But I would see him kind of glancing over every once in a while. Like, he would look over at me. And I feel that's kind of like what a narcissist will do. They'll test you out. They'll glance over at you, like poke you a little bit. You know what I mean? And it isn't until the codependency is broken that those little pokes or those little looks, they realize at some point, I can't get away with it anymore.
Well, it's funny because it didn't dawn until hindsight that, wait a minute, man, he was found passed out, drunk, intoxicated with a loaded firearm and multiple magazine clips in his car. And wasn't he like, there was something was going on where he gave you the silent treatment for many months, and like you see in hindsight like how close to like danger you truly were.
Oh my gosh. When I look back, and like I said before, I mean, this is so much like this is the recovery from this, like the spiritual warfare. When you have God present in your life, like front and center, and he is showing you things, and he's so loving and gradual, you know what I mean? He doesn't just throw it on your face. I mean, I don't know that we would be able to survive that type of shock. I mean, that would be just shock, because we really believe that these demons were people, like different, and that's part of the whole problem. But yeah, in retrospect, there are so many things I look back to, and I'm horrified. Who was I living with? Something really, really bad was inside of him.
Very strange and very, very eerie. And here's the greatest part. Like, we're so important that God did not have to come down to save us. Like, my whole self-worth and self-esteem centers on the fact that God could be up there like a Santa Claus, just looking around the universe and like letting things happen through nature and coming in here and there. But we're so important to him as his children that he took the time out to come down here and not just save me and you, but for all those believers out there. If you do believe, that's how important you are. And I hope that your self-esteem and self-worth stems from that, because when you're battling and you're in spiritual warfare, it ain't like you can go to the gym, like I've done in the past, not in the manner I'm speaking, but it's not like you can go ahead and lift weights and do shadow boxing. It's not like that. Like when you're battling in spiritual warfare, there ain't no ego involved. Like I'm going to show them, and like it all has to do with, you have to allow him to fight for you and stay out of the way, and at the same time find a fine line where you gotta put in the work too and fight with him, because he wants you to fight with him too. But when you realize how important you truly are as a child of God, man, love really truly does conquer all. Now, at the same time, the irony is if that was the case, the narcissist, love we would be able to love the narcissist back to health, but they're not willing to repent because they believe they haven't done anything wrong, or maybe they know and they're shoving it so deep down inside that they're lost. They're like, can no longer be saved.
Yeah, I don't know with the narcissist, my personal belief, which really doesn't amount to much, but I don't think that they can be saved.
Well,
Go ahead.
We did a video on blasphemy of the Holy Spirit and what we thought that was.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it pointed directly to narcissistic personality disorder. God cannot save you or forgive you if you're not willing to take ownership of your role in the sin that you did. If you constantly deny it, he don't give a damn if it's a self-defense mechanism. He made you, and if you're saying, well, I didn't do anything wrong, because it's a shame-based personality disorder, I don't care what you say. How he can forgive somebody that has never truly repented and made amends to try to make right the wrongs?
100%. You and I have gone through some of our recovery together, the tail end of it, and it's painful. God comes into your life, and he came into both our lives. Like, it's weird because I want to tell you it was dramatically, but it was so quiet. Like, it was dramatic, like in retrospect.
Yeah, quiet, yet not. And sudden, yet 20 years.
Yeah.
Some people, it was Carl Jung that said, everyone's born unconscious. What's most unfortunate is that the majority of us die that way. And we don't have to be unconscious, we're awakened. The narcissist isn't the only one that's half conscious, walking around half the time and does stuff wrong and stuff like that. You can't see what the hell they're doing. We as empaths, we have our own defects of character we have to attend to, but the gift of insight and empathy are so huge.
I don't think that you could recover without it. I really don't, because the thing about narcissism, narcissistic abuse, is it is tremendous. The power of it is so much. You're talking about going to the gym. You could never fight a demon. You just could not. They're stronger. Yeah. You could be like Arnold Schwarzenegger at his prime, and you're not beating a demon.
When you're married to these things for 20 years, there's no, at the end of it, well, I'm going to show her. Like, you are on the ground, like, and you've gotten up and you've gotten beaten down again and up and down and up. It took God. It goes back to the beginning. It took power greater than ourselves, beyond human aid, is what it was.
Basically, yeah. You know what? We're standing behind God. He comes in. We are required to do things. We're required to accept what has happened. We're required to know so that we can move forward. Because when God comes into your life and rescues you, you have everything ahead of you. He's right there. And for Joe and I, like, we've been given a whole new life, but we had to participate in it. God is not Santa Claus, And
it's like, as the Old Testament, they talk. The basic story is how loving God is, because his chosen people, according to the Torah, was the Israelites, and the whole story is about them. They were God's chosen people, and they come close, and then they screw up, and it's been my recovery too. Like, I kind of get away from God, and He'll bring me back in when the pain is great enough. I'll come crawling back, and sometimes it doesn't have to be that. The one damn good thing is that God willing, I won't ever forget that I was codependent one time, and part of that is what attracts the narcissists, and I won't have to come across paths, God willing, with another one.
No, God, me too. At least we're together as a team, right? We can help each other. Yeah. No more narcissists. Yeah. So, Joe, what do you think? Do you think we should put this to rest for right now? Maybe bring it up another video like in the future, or what do you think?
We'll see what the comments like. We'll see if anybody leaves a comment or something like that. If they want us to talk about anything else, and we'll just go off the comments. See if anybody had similar experiences like us. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
But if you did, you're not alone. And if you're struggling, it's just hang on, man. Just hang on. Like pick your battles. Some days are just get through the day and make it through. But I promise, like, just don't quit until a miracle happens. This too shall pass, as William Shakespeare says.
You know, guys, like Joe's right. This, Joe and I have experienced miracles. This isn't just, this is not a typical end of a marriage, if there's such a thing. This is, you are in for literally the fight of your life. But with that said, God really does do most of the work, but he requires you to participate. And when it's over, oh my God, like it's almost like you can see in color again.
The wisdom that you gain from this is just you just are you're profoundly changed and on a molecular level.
Yes.
Let's put it that way. And and it's not to say like my recovery has been brutal. I know though to hang on. I could always throw in the towel. I think I'm gonna hang out and keep chugging along a day at a time. And I know that like it gets better and better. It does.
Yeah, I agree. So hang on there because, Joe and I have both had different experiences in recovery, but what we have shared is that there really is like a happy ending for everybody if you just hang on even during the toughest days. So thank you so much for watching this video, Joe, and I appreciate it. Joe, will we see you back next week?
Hopefully, God willing, yes.
All right. Well, I hope everybody has a wonderful week. I will see you on Wednesday, and God bless.